Hi gang, this is Mike G from Mr. GTV and I'm live in the Mr. GTV Facebook group. I'm filming it for both because one will get uploaded to YouTube, and I'm encouraging people to interact more on the Facebook group, whether you're a Facebook lover or not. And if you're watching this, whenever you're watching this in the future, please contribute by putting your comments into the comments boxes, because the idea of Ask Mike Monday is that you ask a question. Hi Spencer, you ask a question, I give my opinion, never saying that I'm right, but I'm looking for interaction. Whether you interact tonight, hi Arella, whether you interact tonight or this afternoon, whenever you're watching this, you can put your comments in the comments box, because this will be uploaded to the group, and the discussion will stay valid until the next Ask Mike Monday. And we've got lots of exciting things, good questions from subscribed members, and I encourage you to like and subscribe both the YouTube channel, and I'm really looking to expand the YouTube channel, so you'd be doing me a massive favour there, because I offer all this for free, so that helps me. And also subscribe to the Facebook channel. So I've been asking for a few days for questions. I've got some great questions and some great topics. Hi Peter. And again, I never say that I'm right. I'm just offering this for your consideration, and we'll have a discussion. You can put your comments in the comments box. Let me just start the comments box going. So if I say hi in the comments box, you'll see that, and you can express your comments, or if you want to just watch and listen, and you can put your comments in afterwards, because as I say, this will be uploaded to the group, and you can put your comments over the next few hours, days and weeks until we do the next live. So let's crack on. The first subject for discussion is, well, let me tell you some of the things we're going to discuss first of all, and I've took this directly from the questionnaire that I asked, what do you want to talk about? So I've got ULEZ, which is the ultra low emission zones. We're going to be discussing that. Please don't get me deleted. Keep it positive, constructive and kind. Everybody's got entitled to an opinion, so nobody's wrong. We're all different points of attention in the same oneness, so we respect everybody's opinion, even if we don't agree. So ULEZ, and we're also going to discuss wind farms, which are very, very current at the moment. We're going to get into the air traffic control system crash. We're going to talk about dream interpretations, because I did a post about 3 days ago, maybe 5 days ago, about dreams and understanding dreams and what dreams are all about. We're going to get into that, and I've actually made a note of some of your dreams that you've had, and we'll do some interpretations, and I'd like your interpretations, because as I say, I never say that I'm right. We're going to talk about national service. There's a move at the moment for conscription. It's all on the news. So we're going to discuss that. What's your opinions about that? Body cams on shop workers, that's come up with the Tesco situation. We're going to talk about the 20-mile-an-hour speed restrictions in Wales, which comes in on the 17th of September. So basically, in 13 days' time, most of the roads in Wales will be 20 miles an hour. What do you think about that? Here's your opportunity to have you say. And also, if you didn't know about this and you're watching this, you can put your questions in. And what I encourage you to do is put your questions in, and we'll either discuss them in this forum or project them forward for the next Ask Mike Monday. So guys, let me speak. First of all, we'll choose the first subject, which is ULEZ, which is ultra low emission zones. What do you think about that? Sadiq Khan's baby, really. And it seems that it was introduced, I mean, I've noticed driving through North Wales, and I'm currently in Thailand coming back to North Wales, but at the moment, even before this has been introduced in Wales, there are low pollution zones. There are speed restrictions, and people are being asked to be aware of their pollution. Now, I'm an ex-motor vehicle technician. I served my apprenticeship with Ford Motor Company, worked for Vauxhalls before that, did a time-served apprenticeship, became a qualified member of the Motor Insurance Bureau, and I also did 32 years with the Automobile Association as a breakdown patrol. So I think I know a little bit about combustion engines, and they've never been cleaner. When catalytic converters came out, and I've got Peter Aspinall watching this, and he's a qualified technician and a manager with the AA or retired. You know, they used to advertise catalytic converters and how efficient they were by putting a glass and catching the drips that came out of an exhaust, and people were drinking it. Now, whether that was a scam or not, that was the confidence that they had, that all the poisonous leads and whatever else comes out of a car exhaust system had been cleansed and was safe. Now, we know that, I mean, you only have to go to Bangkok, where there's massive congestion and gridlock all the time, that it's quite a stinky city. But also in London, you've got the underground that they're not talking about, and that's probably got 20 times the pollution that the high street has, and it's the high street that they're targeting. And it's not just going to be inner London, it's going to be outer London, and trust me, once they've got away with it there, it's going to be everywhere. And they put in planters around a lot of cities and diverting them out. And I go to Manchester now, and I used to be a Manchester city centre AA patrolman between 1977 and 1987 before I moved to Wales. And you just can't get Google Maps to take you through the city centre now, because there's so many diversions, so many changed routes, there's so many pedestrianised areas, cycle lanes, bus lanes, designated taxi areas. You just can't get in. It's a completely pedestrianised area, and they're encouraging you to take public transport in. Now, the problem with public transport, as you probably know, is that at the moment now, trying to get a train anywhere, you can't buy a ticket at the train station. If you get on without a ticket and expect to pay at the end of your journey, you'll get fined. If you get caught on a train without a ticket, you'll get fined. It's become a real challenge, and you can only buy a ticket with an app if you've registered the app in advance, if you've put your payment method into the app and it's being acknowledged and registered. So you get some poor old couple, retired couple or elderly couple, or anybody really that's not tech savvy, trying to sort that lot out, and it can be an absolute nightmare. So public transport isn't available. You get on these trains, they're full, you can book your seat and you don't get a seat. Now, I'm not ranting here, this is the reality. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about this? Because trust me, once they've got away with it in London, it's going to be rolled out to other major cities if it hasn't done already. What's your experience in the UK? What's your experience in the country where you're viewing this presentation, whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're watching in the Mr. GTV Facebook group where you can interact? So I encourage you to sign up for the Mr. GTV Facebook group. It's free. There's no subscription. You can subscribe, but that just means you get better notifications when I go live. So what do you think about this? I know for a fact that engines running, well, there's the 20 mile an hour zones that we're going to talk about, but engines that run at 20 mile an hour aren't efficient, and it's quite unsafe, particularly motorbikes. You've got no stability on a motorbike, or less stability on a motorbike at 20 miles an hour. You're riding a machine that's got 2 gyroscopes, and the system just doesn't work at 20 miles an hour. A lot of these vehicles, even these electric vehicles that most people can't afford, they're absolutely powerhouses. They're fiberglass bodies or carbon bodies. They've got powerful electric engines, and the acceleration 0 to 60 exceeds anything that I'm used to. And yet they want you to go 20 miles an hour in Wales, and that's actually in with very little. I mean, there's been a public outcry, but have you seen it on the news? It just won't work. It just will not work. But my point is that they don't want it to work. They don't want you, Les. There's so many taxi drivers and market stall holders and businesses and hotels that say that people will not come into the city centre. There's people who live in the outer circle of London, and they're putting up these zones for ultra low emission zones, and they can't even get in the car without paying a £12 fine because the cars don't meet the emissions regulations that they're bringing out. And yet, as a motor mechanic, an ex-motor mechanic, I know that, you know, they've passed their MOT check. Here's the point, they've passed their MOT check, they've passed the emissions test for an MOT, a government check test that says that they are safe for the environment to go on British roads, and yet in these ULEZ zones they are not safe, and that's being brought in by certain city mayors. And this is Sadiq Khan won't listen to the London population who voted him there. So we basically, in my opinion, got to vote with our feet. We've got to get these clowns out of government. But what you've got to understand is that it's a global policy. We'll talk about that as we progress. But what do you guys think about the prospect of two things happening this year, definitely 2024, that we're going to have these ultra low emission zones, most of our cities pedestrianised, unable to drive into them. So how do you get to Heathrow Airport? How do you get to Heathrow Airport with your car? If I wanted to get a flight from North Wales, if I wanted to go from North Wales to Heathrow Airport to get a flight to Thailand, or I wanted, say, my daughter or somebody to pick me up, my daughter's got a fantastic RAV4, my son's got a beautiful Vauxhall van. Now, would those pass the emissions test? They might do the first year, but once this is in, it's very easy for them to say, okay, we were going to allow vehicles up to 8 years old or 5 years old. Now your vehicle's got to be 3 years old. And basically they've got this scrappage scheme. And you've got to scrap your vehicle, take the government handout and replace it with what? Because the public transport system is poor, particularly in the rural areas. Trains don't work. So the whole thing, in my opinion, only my opinion, is divisive. I think you know what I think. So what do you guys think? I'll leave that out there. I'm getting no comments on the screen. I've made my point. But these 20-mile-an-hour zones will reduce our ability to effectively commute. And if we haven't got a vehicle that the government now in these ultra-low emission zones say are viable to commute in, that means there's only a certain elite echelon of society that will be able to afford the electric vehicles. And we do know these electric vehicles within 3 to 4 years need battery replacements. And the batteries cost basically 60-70% the cost of the vehicle. So if you get a £10,000 or £14,000 electric car, your batteries will probably cost between £4,000, £6,000, £8,000. Tesla cars, the batteries are upwards of £15,000 to £20,000 to replace them. £15,000 to £20,000 to replace the battery. As an AA patrolman, I was putting batteries on people's cars from Halfords, and then the AA supplied the batteries eventually through a Lucas Spares scheme. I think the most expensive battery was £185 when someone got a flat battery. I'll probably be corrected on that because I left the AA before I went into business in 2010. So Anne Harrison's there saying, sounds like they don't want us to go anywhere, control using emission excuses. I completely concur, completely agree. Hi Mark. It's divisive. And therefore, what do we do about it? I'll say that, you know, there are legal things that we must do, but they have changed the rules and laws on our right to protest. They've also got fact checkers, and you know they can delete you for saying things against this agenda on most of the social platforms. So you've got to be very careful what you say. But I would lobby your MPs. I would go to your council meetings. If you're a member of the Labour Party, Conservative Party, the Green Party, Plaid Cymru, Scottish Nationalist Party, the Liberal Democrats, UKIP, whatever you're a member of, you need to go and talk to that representative and tell him that they will not get your vote. They want votes. They want to be popular, and they've got to be told that they're not going to be popular. We've got to wake up basically to see what's taking place. And also that's what we can do physically. We can email, we can write, we can turn up, we can express our opinions, even though you probably won't be popular for expressing them, but do it anyway, because when you say it, even if it lands on deaf ears, it's a communication to the universe, it's a vibration. If there's programs on the television that are singing the praises. Don't give those programs ratings. Don't watch the news. Maybe we shouldn't vote. Maybe if we just withdraw, then these politicians will be out of a job. These networks that don't allow the other side of the story won't get supported. Maybe we should go on to social media platforms that tell the truth, that give both sides of the version, whatever your truth is. What do you think about that? It's time to take a stand. If we don't take a stand now about our ability to communicate with each other, free speech, if we don't, to be able to travel to each other faster than 20 miles an hour, which is a ridiculous proposal, if we don't fight for our public transport, free speech, our restriction of our liberties, then the next generation won't have a leg to stand on. Do it for your grandchildren and your children, in my opinion. And then metaphysically, doing things like the healing circle that I did last night, which is an ability to charge yourself up and then to radiate an intention. I'll say that again, to charge yourself up and radiate an intention. So far more than just talking about what you believe and just not making anybody wrong for what they believe, but just explaining your belief system. Not saying you're right, allowing people to consider your opinion. Just expressing that, as I say, it could land on fertile ears or deaf ears, but it goes out into the universe. It gets picked up as a vibration, and keep it positive. Don't go into hate. This whole regime change, this whole paradigm change is one of fear-based and violence and evil and darkness, and don't add to that. Be positive, light and bright. Talk about what you want, not what you don't want. Don't dwell on the problem. Talk about the solution positively, in my opinion. So there's 20 mile an hour zones that are coming in, definitely coming in Wales, with little opposition, although there has been opposition, but you won't see that on the mainstream media. There's been thousands of people marching through London city centres, and lots of capitals, Paris and Germany, people taking to the streets. There's a massive opposition to ULEZ and these cameras, and there's these blade runners who are cutting them down. I hand it to them, but I can't agree with them because it's violence, and I'm not into violence. But I do understand it, and I think there's going to be more civil unrest. And I think that leads into a subject maybe that we can talk about again. Now, as I say, you can put your comments on the comments box here. If you're watching on YouTube there, you can go to the comments box, go to Mr. GTV and put your comments there, or just talk to me. Plenty of ways you can talk to me. If you want to chat, I'm here for that, and all my contact details will be on the page where you're viewing this presentation on that platform. As I say, Anne Harrison has nailed it completely by saying it sounds like they don't want us to go anywhere. It's control, it's using emission excuses, and they are excuses. So the other subject that came up for Ask Mike Monday is one regarding wind farms. These started to appear some time ago, didn't they? There was land turbines, and now there's these fields of wind turbines offshore. And I'm a Manchester lad, you can probably tell by my accent, but I've lived and worked for 30 odd years in North Wales, and the whole of the North Wales coast. You look out to sea and all you see is wind farms, and I'm being told that it sets up a vibration that can be felt on the landmass, that people in Ross-on-Sea and Colwyn Bay, which was my particular area, can hear the vibration, feel the vibration if you're sensitive to it. And they're less than useless. Most of the days they're not spinning. It hasn't reduced the prices of access to the grid. In fact, the prices have gone up. Even when they're working, a lot of them don't work. They're not renewable. Apparently the blades of them, you can't dispose of them. They're having to be shipped somewhere. They have to be built somewhere else, shipped in, installed quite often by foreign companies. Not that I'm anti-foreigner, but it's not good for Britain. And then when these things break down, they can't dispose of them. They're not biodegradable. They've got to be put into concrete and sunk. And we basically have wind that will drive these turbines something like 115 days a year. And there's 365, so they're fairly redundant. and it's a massive cost to the taxpayer, but no benefit to the taxpayer. And they're an eyesore. And it's destroying wildlife and sea life. So ecologically and economically, it's not viable. But the only people who are benefiting from it, unless you can prove different, are the shareholders and the companies that the government have sponsored and are subsidising to put these things in. And I can't prove this, but I guarantee, or I suggest, look at who owns those companies. Absolutely right, Mark. Mark Williams here on the Mr. GTV Facebook page that says hundreds near where he lives and stationary for days. And the amount of maintenance they need is phenomenal, at a phenomenal cost. If you work offshore and you're a wind turbine engineer, you'll be on high salary for a high risk job. All that's got to be paid for. So where's the benefit? It's just another government money making scheme, in my opinion. Who's paying for all these cameras that nobody wants and they're cutting down? It doesn't make society run better. It suppresses and oppresses society, and we have no say. And we don't know about insider trading. In other words, we don't know, when these proposals are passed in the House of Lords or House of Commons, we don't know who the shareholders are and how they're in the pockets of the government officials, MPs that vote them in. And we saw this during COVID, didn't we, where certain companies got the contracts and they were friends of the government officials. So there's backhanders and, MPs and lords and ladies and members of parliament, wives and sisters and brothers and family and friends who were all getting favoured contracts. I think that took place during COVID. It definitely takes place, in the green agenda. So, Ask Mike Monday is one of the few places where you'll see me on my soapbox for these sorts of things. And again, we need to lobby, we need to have our voice heard positively and powerfully, lovingly and constructively. Talk about what you want, not what you don't want. Don't come across as being a moaner. Don't explain, don't complain, just talk about the solution. What would be better? What's the answer to this? And then put that out there to the ears of anybody who's listening. And also project it and radiate it during your meditations in your golden time. If you don't understand what golden time is, then you need to really check out the stuff that I'm presenting metaphysically in the Mr. GTV Facebook page. Possibly where you're watching this live, although I'm on YouTube also. Because I believe that the physical world is just a storybook and we're here to evolve consciousness. So all these stories like ULEZ and wind farms and 20-mile-an-hour zones and 20-minute cities or whatever, 5k and 10k towns, they're just stories. But we live in these stories if we attach to the physical. But we've got to rise above that. It's difficult because we feel like we're suffering in the physical, but suffering is a choice. You can experience and not suffer. You can maintain your peace of mind and your integrity. Challenging, but it can be done, and that's what we're here to learn. If we don't learn it in this time, we'll come back karmically and maybe reincarnate and learn it again. So these are interesting subjects, and I realise that this is sort of like 4 o'clock in the afternoon that I'm doing this. There won't be a lot of people who'll be watching this now, but I'm putting it out there so when you come home from work or over the weekend, whenever you see this, you can put your comments, have your point of view heard, keep it positively kind, loving and constructive. Don't get the platform deleted. Talk about what you know, not what you've heard. We don't want second-hand information. Do your research and give me a valued opinion and let's discuss it. And I won't make you wrong, and nobody in my group will make you wrong. And if there's anybody comes in and starts disrespecting, they'll be deleted, because I don't want a group like that, and I won't have it. And I do delete people. If you know me, I protect you guys. You are my spiritual warriors. So these wind farms and land farms, these land turbines, to me, I don't see the merit. But if you feel differently, please express your opinion positively. So we've talked about ULEZ and wind farms. We've talked about the 20 miles an hour restrictions. And we'll move on to something else that's within the same category before we go into dream interpretations, guys. So let's talk about the story that's come up recently with Tesco's. This is what we're being told, that Tesco's workers are doing this and that, and they don't feel safe. Now, I believe that a lot of these stories are created by the media, put out on television, which I call television, and they're made to create a situation, and then it looks like the powers that be come along with a solution. From my experience, a lot of people agree with me that it's this problem, reaction, solution. So what they want to do is they want to put body cams on people in shops. So what they've done now is they've reported on violence in shops so they can justify putting the body cams on. And ask yourself why you think they want to put body cams on shopkeepers in these major superstores. Just think about that for a moment, and then when the penny's dropped, you might realise that basically what they're doing is they're making certain shopkeepers in certain superstores almost like security people. Even Mrs. Smith, who serves you at the till, or Mr. Jones. We know already that, you know, a lot of pubs, they have bouncers on the doors now, don't they? Security. Extra surveillance. Extra surveillance, absolutely, Mark. They've got body cams. They can do biometrics on you, which is digital IDs, as Sony's just said there. I'm pointing down to my Mr. GTV live in the Facebook group where they're interacting. And they'll know what you're buying, who's buying it, what you look like. And when you go onto those premises, they can check you out. We already know, going to YouTube, Aldi in London are already, they're putting electronic gates in a lot of stores. At the moment, they open freely. And they're just getting you used to going through. Why did they, if you've got doors to get in that control the climate in the shop, maybe they'll say, why do they need these gates once you're in? Well, in my opinion, they are conditioning you to go through another series of security checks where you'll have to have an app maybe, or a QR code on your phone, where when you go in, they've got all your details, digital ID, what sort of a citizen you are, what your medical history is, who you are, where you are, what you're purchasing. They'll have access to your finances. We're already doing self-checkout, aren't we? So basically, you know, it's as if we work for them. Yeah, Sonny's saying there you'll need an app. Now, people who haven't got this, as I already said, it's so difficult for elderly people and people without a smartphone, which is a really smart idea not to have a smartphone, but they're making sure you've got this to buy a train ticket now, because there's no train stations as such. You can't buy tickets at a lot of train stations that's going. That's a thing of the past, particularly substations. You might get one at Manchester Piccadilly or London or Liverpool station. As you stop off on the way, if you want to get off or get on at these substations, you've got to have a ticket, have it paid for, and what they want you to do is do it online in advance, which isn't the way that life works, is it? And use public transport, and that's poor. And all these bus routes are closing and you can't get a train seat, and the rail service is rubbish, and the roads are 20 miles an hour. So you go into Aldi now today, as I speak, and there's electronic surveillance to get in, and if you haven't got it, you don't get in. Now, if you create a fuss, what's going to happen is they're going to have a body cam, and basically it's almost like you're going in your t-shirt and jeans and your flip-flops on holiday, or you're going in with your suit, or you know, your nice whatever you're wearing before work to get your lunch, and after work to get your bottle of wine before you go home, and your evening dinner ingredients, whatever. And then you're going to be met by officials who are basically shopkeepers, but they're going to have body cams, so you're going to feel like a criminal. You know, you're being, you know, when you go up and ask for assistance, it's being filmed. You're being checked. This is becoming the norm. This is the new normal. And it's actually in place at the moment. I've cited Aldi, but I'm sure it's in other places as well. So, you know, you go to a pop concert or it's going to be QR codes. This is the way it's going, and they're introducing it, and it's been tested in Israel and France and places like that. In Paris now, you know, you've got to close doors when you go into premises because you can let pollution into the building and heat out, and it's a finable offence. Trust me, that's what's going on. So there's a complete paradigm shift, and it's been introduced with a tiptoe agenda, softly, but it's accelerating now. It's all happening, in my opinion, September forward, which we're in, as I predicted, as other people have predicted. Nothing clever about me. Do your research, but don't go to the mainstream media to get the truth. So what's your opinions on that? Because I think it's very dark, very controlling, very oppressive. I think it's something that we should be concerned about. Now, you know, as I said, I've already suggested what you can do physically, that you can lobby, you can protest, you can actually refuse to go to those shops and don't give them your custom. You can say what you think, but don't argue. Just walk away and say, you've lost my business. Vote with your feet. It's like these programs on television that are advertising these agendas that you don't like and saying these things that you don't want to hear. Just turn them off. Don't take part. Don't give them ratings. But turn up at your MPs, you know, your MPs clinics, and tell your MP, send them loads of emails. They're getting loads of emails. If half the population of a jurisdiction of an MP emailed him all of a sudden and kept emailing him, and his email inbox was overloaded with people saying, we're not happy with the way that this district is changing under your rule, under this mayor, under this council, under your governance, then basically if they're becoming unpopular, I'm sure that voice being heard, that vibration, hey Sharnath, I'm sure that will have something to do in a positive way. But what do you think about this? This is That's Mike Monday. This is my point of view. What's yours? If you agree or disagree, keep it constructive, positive, loving, and, you know, tell me your truth. Share it with everybody else, and we'll all contribute either now or whenever people join the discussion. That's what this is about. If you're enjoying this, then share this also. Body cams on shop workers. Something I never thought I'd see in my lifetime, and I've been here 66 years. Think about what it's going to be like for our children and our grandchildren, being basically policed and having surveillance by shopkeepers. There's going to be more of this. Cameras everywhere, 20-mile-an-hour zones. And a lot of these zones will actually be closed off, you know, with the idea about smart cities, and I'm not making this up. You'll have to ask permission to leave your area. At the moment, the lobby is that you'll be able to go out of your area 100 times a year. It's twice a week. So if you wanted to go from Wales to Manchester, or Manchester to Liverpool, or Liverpool to Blackpool or something like that, or London to Essex, or, you know, well, probably London and Essex would cover London down to Portsmouth or something like that, 100 times. It would be considered non-essential unless you ask for permission. You've got to ask for permission. Where's your papers? What does that sound like to you? Where's your papers? And then computer says no. It's control, isn't it? It's happening. This is the 2020-2030 agenda. And there's a C30, C40 carbon-free summit where more of these things are being brought in, as was mentioned before, under the excuse of climate change. Whether you believe in climate change or whatever. Do you want this to be the legacy for your children and your children's children? It was Judge Dredd, yeah, where he swore and then he got fined and then he had to talk to the driver of an electric car and it was a robot and he couldn't take him and he punched the robot and drove the car himself and got tokens. It was a comedy, but it very much was a predictive programming on where we're going. I think it was a 90s film or an 80s film. Judge Dredd, look at that. Sylvester Stallone as a cop who was a New York cop who was cryogenically frozen and then resurrected sort of 200-300 years into the future. And this basically was what he landed with. They were living in a dome where the people were charged for oxygen. And I think, you know, there's a lot of people that we know in certain organisations, as I won't mention, that would probably do that. The ex-owner of Microsoft is one of them. And they've talked about that at the World Economic Forum. So moving on now, I want to go into something more positive, which is dream interpretations. I mentioned in the Mr. GTV Facebook channel about dreams and about the theme of your dream. And I said to people, what are you dreaming about? So let's move on to something more edifying. And Alice Farah, who's a subscribed member of Mr. GTV, posted, I had a dream last night that a volcano erupted outside my house. We died, then I woke up and realised I dreamt it, but I was still dreaming that I'd died and woke up. And then it was a burning tree that fell on the house, but I got out in time, and then there was some socialising by a river, and then I woke up for real. So there was a volcano, the house erupted, or the volcano erupted outside the house, a tree fell on the house, she woke up in the dream, but she was still dreaming, she woke up. Burning tree, they went outside and started to talk to some neighbours by a river, and then she actually woke up for real. What do you think about that? I'd be very interested to know what your interpretation of that dream is, because I believe that all dreams are metaphors. I'll just get some water. Hiya Donna, and a metaphor is a story with some truth in it. And I think our dream life is exactly the same. You see, we have many states of consciousness. We have our waking state, and then we have daydreams, and then we have our sleeping state, and we have night dreams. Probably far more besides. Different levels of trance that we go into, like eyes open hypnosis, which is what television puts you into and driving puts you into, and repetitive things put you through different brain waves of alpha, beta, theta, delta, gamma. And I utilise those states when I'm inducing hypnosis for catalepsy and for permanent change. I'm using two cameras here if you've just joined me, one on YouTube and one on Facebook, Mr. GTV. Now I believe that daydreams reveal things to us if we can remember them. We just sort of disappear for a moment in our mind, drift off. Where did you go? Pay attention. It's valuable to know where you went and why, what created it, what triggered you to go into this changed phase of vibration in your mind. And then at night, what do you think about? What do you dream about? That's important as well. Because our dreams are quite often helping us sort things out. It's like a filing process to make sense of our physical experiences. Because in dreams, there's no physical laws. You can swim underwater and breathe underwater. You can fly like an eagle. You can become anything that you dream yourself to be. Now, I believe that you can bring those superpowers that you have in dreams into what we call waking existence. So clearly, on Alice Farah's mind, metaphorically, the volcano erupted outside the house. So I would say that that's something is going on outside of her castle, her home, which is erupting or about to erupt or has erupted. And it says we died, but it's a bit like getting the death card or the Grim Reaper card in tarot. It doesn't necessarily mean the physical death, it just means the end of a situation. So it might be for you, Alice, that something's erupted and it's finished something. Now, quite often that's unpleasant. It doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't necessary. It might not have been what you wanted, but it's what you needed. There was a burning tree that fell on the house. So burning is the element of fire. So it's something emotional. And it fell on the house, so in other words, it's come into your domestic life, even though it's something that was outside. The volcano was outside. It's something that created disruption in your domestic situation. It said that you went outside and that people were socializing by a river, and that's the element of water. So it's fire and water, which cooled down the situation. So by talking something through, then you woke up and it was all resolved. So something's happened, is happening, or is going to happen, in my opinion, that's fiery, emotional, makes you hot-headed. It ends something, which is what you need and not what you want. It's unpleasant, but then you talk it through, make sense of it, and it all calms down. That's how I would interpret that. What do you guys think? As a hypnotist, a wordsmith, I've dealt with dreams and I create dreams for people. It's called vicarious programming. And by installing dreams or hypnotic commands and visualizations, you can really get into this filing cabinet in your mind and create some order. And so when you come out of the trance, you see things in new ways. Now, you're missing the wisdom, in my opinion, if you don't pay attention to your dreams. I always keep a dream diary. I keep pen and paper at the side of my bed. Even though I've got electronic devices, I've got two working here. I've got a mobile phone on YouTube. I've got an iPad on Mr. GTV. And I've got others. But I always go to pen and paper. I wake up in the morning or in the middle of the night, whenever I wake up. And what was I dreaming about? What was on my mind? I keep pen and paper in the passenger seat when I'm driving around, because driving puts me into hypnosis. And what's the theme of my thoughts? Where does my mind go? I'm very self-aware, and this is called mindfulness, and I would recommend that you do it because your dreams are significant. So Melanie Trevitt Jones said, and I'm not revealing secrets, this is on the public page within Mr. GTV on Facebook, my dad, who had just departed, came into my dream, hugged me and told me that he wasn't okay being on the other side. She woke up hugging and crying. Last night I was holding a bowl up to a temple and bowing my head. I wish I knew how to interpret this. What do you guys think about that? That Melanie had a disturbing, upsetting dream that her dad had come through saying he wasn't okay with being on the other side. She woke up crying, and then the night after she dreamed that she was holding a bowl up to a temple and bowing her head. Well, I reckon that there's, without going into great depth, because this is a public reply, that there has been possibly something that your father's not been okay with as he vibrates. See, he's not in heaven, he's still with us, but he's just not in his physical body. So nobody goes anywhere. It's just that they transform, they transcend, they shift from the physical to the metaphysical. So my dad's around me all the time. I'm in constant dialogue with him. He's not always happy with me. My dad was very much like me. He was a doer. He'd want to solve problems and sort things out and help people. With the challenges in my life, he would probably have something to say, but in heaven or in that other dimension, which we call heaven, he can't physically do something. So Sony's just said there, holding a bowl is an offering. I completely agree. To me, that your subsequent dream, Melanie, said that you're holding a bowl up in a temple. So a bowl is like an offering. A bowl is an upturned head. It's like if you think about, it's like a skull, a bone skull, holding a bowl up. And in the ancient days, they did the temples, they used to regressively take skulls or cut off the brain area, which was considered to hold the wisdom, and these are called temples. So you held a bowl up to a temple. In other words, you connected your head to him and you're bowing your head. So you're connecting to him. And I think that you've resolved that now. I think that your father, having offered yourself up to him, yes, Sonny, created a channel connected through your temples to your higher self and to your higher mind, where your father resides at a higher vibration, resolved. I would imagine that situation now is at peace. And you should always talk to passed over loved ones. And you should always talk to people who are still here that you can't necessarily talk to. As I say, when you talk positively about all this agenda that's going on in the world, the vibration goes out. It falls on some deaf ears, but it actually falls on ears that are ready to listen at a vibrational level that we don't understand, non-verbal level, but it's a vibration that people empathize with and definitely feel. It's like when you come into contact with somebody and not necessarily saying anything, but you take an instant liking or a dislike to non-verbal communication. In your dreams, you do connect to the oneness. You're out of your physical body. We are telepathic. So Sonny's asking there, what was in the bowl? What did the bowl look like? So that's a question for Melanie Trevitt Jones. And I'll be telling these people that I've done a dream interpretation with them for them to look at what's being said. I moved to the next dream. And it was yours, Sony, okay? Recurring dreams about whales since you were a kid. So you hear, you're listening, and you ask that question. So whales are advanced beings. I mean, I remember watching an episode of Star Trek where the oceans were here before the land masses. That's the belief of creation, story, metaphor, but that's what we're told. And the whales were in the seas, and we know that whales can communicate all around the world through the seas. And this UFO came in this Star Trek program, and it was looking for the whales vibration, the cry of the whales. That's okay, Shana, thanks for joining me, to communicate with. And in the absence of finding the whales, the presence of the UFO was actually changing the orbit of the Earth and putting the Earth at risk. And so to solve it, what they did was they found some historical sounds of whales, played it, and then the UFO heard it and went away. Now, that's just a story. It's very apt. An explanation possibly for you, Sony, who said reoccurring dreams about whales. Whales are very significant. They've been here for years. They're very intelligent. They communicate around the world. The whale is emblematically symbolic, Jonah and the whale, a safe house. Jonah went into the whale and came out. So whales are places of safety, they're places of peace, places of wisdom. species of wisdom, very ecologically sound, prehistoric. So you've obviously got a connection there. I've got a connection with eagles. Some people have a connection with wolves. Some people have a connection with cats and all sorts of animals, spirit animals. I think whales are your spirit animals, Sony. And so your dreams, you know, it's the content of the dream that I'm interested in. What's the communication? What's the connection? What's the storyline? We'll probably talk about that off cam. But that's really what I would suggest is going on, that possibly you are communicating in your dreams to whales, or you are communicating like a whale. Higher evolved being. Trisha Lambert mentioned in dreams, and I'll just do these dreams and then we'll close this Ask Mike Monday tonight. And then we'll wait for comments, and then I've got more to cover, but we'll probably take that up next Monday. But thank you for being with me, and thank you for listening and sharing and caring. And anybody who watches this in the future, I'm talking to YouTube and I'm talking to you guys in the Mr. GT Live, and I can actually interact with the Mr. GT Live. So Trisha Lambert said, when I was a kid, I used to dream I could jump and fly. So did I. I can remember a dream of mine where I used to reliably stand as a young child, maybe a boy of 6, 7, 8, at the top of the stairs and imagine floating down the stairs. And I don't believe I imagined it, I believe that I experienced that. I also used to dream about being chased by wolves. Wolves are very enigmatic. Like I said, wolves and elephants and tigers and lots of spirit animals, unicorns and polar bears, whatever, owls possibly. And I couldn't run or scream, but sometimes, very few in my dream, I wouldn't remember, but I could fly. Wolves hunt in packs, and the predators, and they're very spiritual. And in my opinion, look at the content of the story, look at the context of the story, and then look at what's going on in your life at the moment, Trisha, that there might be wolves around you that are predators and controlling you. But remember that you can fly. And it's the last thing that you said in your narrative to me and in the group, and I'm reading this directly from the answer to my question, what's the contents of your dreams? I could fly. And the thing is, you use the word I could, and that's not right. You can fly. You can fly. And you can fly, Trisha. And we can all fly. We don't have to stay where we are. We don't have to. What you allow continues, but you can fly. You can walk away. You don't have to be in any situation that's uncomfortable. You can choose to exit. You can fly. And when you know you can fly, in your dream life, you bring those skills and abilities into your waking state. You can fly away in your mind. And I believe you can fly away in your body also. Helen Morris says she dreams about hugging her mum and dad. Beautiful. Stephen Oliver jokingly says, don't get me started with dreams, which I think is quite funny. So dreams are important. Your dream life is one aspect of consciousness, which is night dreams, night sleep, daydreams, and day waking state. And they're all relevant, and it's all part of our experience. And don't miss a trick. Bring your superpowers that you got in your dreams into your waking state, and you can live a magical life. And despite what's going on in the world that we discussed in the first maybe 35 minutes, the world is still a wonderful place. It's a playground and a classroom. Got lots to learn and evolve consciousness, and we should have fun doing it. So thank you for watching. Put your comments in the comments box. Keep it positive, kind. Subscribe, please, to the Mr. GTV Facebook channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're a Facebook member, that would do me a great favour and help me to be able to bring more content for free on Mr. GTV by me, Mike G. Be powerful. Good night, God bless. Enjoy your mind.